Have you ever wondered what happens when a man realizes he's lost a high-value woman like you? Not just a casual loss, but the gut-wrenching, soul-shaking realization that he let go of someone truly exceptional. It's a moment that shakes his foundation, forcing him to confront truths about himself, about you, and about the kind of love he may never find again. We're diving deep into the dark Stoic psychology of this experience, because yes, losing a high-value woman isn't just about regret, it's about transformation. But here's the kicker. He often doesn't realize what he's lost right away. No, it sneaks up on him, layer by layer, until he's left grappling with emotions he never expected to feel. This journey is raw. It's real. And for those of you who've ever questioned whether he truly valued you, this exploration will be an eye-opener. Each stage of his realization is a story of pride, vulnerability, and eventual growth. By the end, you'll understand why you're unforgettable and how your absence impacts him in ways even he struggles to articulate. But here's the catch: while his regret might seem like a victory, this isn't about him. It's about you. It's about stepping into your power as a high-value woman who recognizes her worth and doesn't settle for less than she deserves. So, are you ready to uncover these hidden truths and see why your presence and absence can transform a man? Let's dive in. 1. The shock and denial. Imagine this. He's going about his day confident in his choices, telling himself he's better off without you. At first, there's no pain, no sadness, no sense of loss, just a quiet arrogance that assures him he'll be fine. After all, isn't the world full of options? But then it happens. Maybe it's something small. A photo pops up on his social media. A song you both loved starts playing. Or he stumbles across a place you two used to visit together. At first, it's subtle. He brushes it off, telling himself, it's no big deal. But the reality of your absence is like a shadow he can't shake, growing darker and more persistent with every passing moment. This is the stage where denial takes center stage. His ego tells him he's unaffected, that life without you is the same or even better. But deep down, something's shifting. Memories start bubbling up, uninvited and relentless. Conversations you had, the way your laugh filled the room, the way you challenged him to be better. All of it starts replaying in his mind like a movie he can't turn off. And here's the twist. He didn't think you'd ever truly walk away. That's where the shock comes in. Your strength, your resolve, it blindsides him. He assumed you'd always be there, forgiving, understanding, waiting. The thought of losing you wasn't just improbable, it was impossible. So now he's left with this gnawing sense of unease. He scrolls through old texts, revisits photos, even replays arguments in his mind, trying to pinpoint where things started to unravel. It's almost obsessive, this need to analyze what went wrong. But there's a wall, a stubborn, pride-fueled wall, between his heart and his mind. He tells himself, I'll move on. He convinces himself that he's better off, that he doesn't need you. But as the days pass, this denial becomes harder to maintain. The void you've left in his life becomes clearer, sharper, more undeniable. And that's when the real wake-up call hits him. What's fascinating about this stage is how Stoicism plays a role in his initial reaction. Stoicism teaches us to accept what we cannot control, but in his case, he's failing to embrace it. Instead, he fights against the tide, clinging to the illusion of control, even as his emotions begin to betray him. You see, when a high-value woman leaves, it's not just her presence he misses, it's the stability, the understanding, and the inspiration she brought into his life. And the irony. These are the very things he took for granted when he had you. In this stage, the realization is still creeping up on him, slow and insidious. But it's there, whispering in his ear, reminding him that something significant is missing. And no matter how hard he tries to distract himself, whether through work, friends, or shallow connections, nothing feels the same. So here's the question for you. Have you ever walked away from someone who didn't fully see your worth, only to watch them struggle with the reality of your absence? How did it feel to reclaim your power and let them face the consequences of losing someone irreplaceable? Because here's the truth. The shock and denial are just the beginning. What comes next is a journey that will change him, and you, forever. 2. The comparison game. Now, here's where things start to get really interesting. After the initial shock fades, he begins to venture out, trying to reclaim his footing, telling himself it's time to move forward. Maybe he starts dating again or reconnecting with old friends. On the surface, it looks like he's bouncing back, but beneath that confident exterior lies a subtle, constant evaluation, one he can't quite control. Every new interaction becomes a mirror, reflecting back what he's lost. Each woman he meets, no matter how charming or beautiful, faces an unspoken comparison. It's not intentional, at least not at first. But as he gets to know them, he starts noticing the differences. She doesn't challenge him the way you did. She doesn't laugh at his jokes with the same genuine warmth. And when life throws him a curveball, she doesn't have the calm strength you always brought to the table. He begins to realize that what made you special wasn't just your looks or your presence, it was your essence. The patience you showed him when he was at his worst. The ambition that inspired him to dream bigger. The emotional depth that made every conversation with you feel meaningful. And the kicker. He might not even admit this to himself right away, but it's there, lingering in the background, coloring every new interaction. No matter how much he wants to believe he's moved on, your shadow looms over everything. This is where Dark Stoic Psychology comes into play. Stoicism teaches us that true value lies in what's rare and hard to come by. And as he moves through this stage, he starts to see just how rare you truly were. Your calmness in chaos, your ability to make him feel understood, these weren't just traits. They were qualities that set you apart from the crowd. And it's humbling for him, because for the first time he's forced to confront a painful truth. Not all connections are equal. Some are shallow, fleeting, forgettable, but what you shared, that was unique. A bond built on mutual respect, growth, and understanding. He starts measuring everyone against you, consciously or not. It's in the way he notices when someone lacks the emotional intelligence you had or when they don't seem to understand his deeper layers. Each interaction serves as a reminder of what he lost. But here's the catch. While he's busy comparing, you're out there thriving. You've stepped into your power, embraced your worth, and refused to settle for anything less. And as he's learning these lessons, you're building a life filled with the kind of joy, success, and fulfillment that only a high-value woman can create. So now, I have a question for you. Have you ever watched someone who underestimated your worth finally realize what they had after it was too late? How did it feel to know that your absence was the wake-up call they needed? If this resonates with you, take a moment to hit that like button and let me know by commenting number 1 below. And if you're ready to uncover even more about how your presence and absence can transform a man, make sure to subscribe to this channel. This is just the beginning. What's coming next is even more revealing. From the depths of his regret to the powerful growth your absence inspires, his journey is far from over. Let's keep going. 3. The depth of regret. Regret. It's a heavy word, isn't it? But for him, regret is not just a fleeting feeling. It's a weight that settles into his chest, growing heavier with every passing day. This stage is where he begins to understand the enormity of what he's lost. And it doesn't come all at once. It creeps in slowly, one memory at a time, until it consumes him. It starts with the little things. Maybe he remembers a time you stood by him during a tough moment, offering unwavering support when he felt like the world was crumbling around him. Or perhaps it's the way you noticed the small details about him, the way he liked his coffee, the songs he played on repeat, the dreams he was too afraid to share with anyone else. At first, these memories feel like bittersweet flashes of the past, but soon they become something more. They start to haunt him, forcing him to reflect on his actions, or lack thereof. He begins to recall the moments where he took you for granted, dismissed your efforts, or let his pride get in the way of truly appreciating you. What stings the most is the realization that you gave him something he didn't reciprocate in full. Vulnerability. You showed up for him, emotionally and mentally, in ways that most people wouldn't. You opened your heart, your time, your energy to build something real with him. And in those moments where he brushed it aside or failed to meet you halfway, he now sees the cracks that formed in the foundation of your relationship. The regret isn't just about losing you, it's about facing himself. He starts asking questions he doesn't want to answer. Why didn't he try harder? Why did he let petty arguments or fleeting distractions take priority over someone as rare and remarkable as you? Was it his fear of intimacy? His inability to confront his own insecurities? This stage is brutal because it's not just about missing you. It's about recognizing the role he played in losing you. And that realization, it's humbling. It forces him to confront the parts of himself he's been avoiding for years. In the quiet of his own mind, he replays the fights, the misunderstandings, the moments where he held back instead of leaning in. He remembers the times he could have said, "I'm sorry," or "thank you," or "I love you," but didn't. And with every memory, the regret deepens. But regret is tricky. It doesn't just come with sadness, it comes with longing. He starts to imagine what could have been. What if he had swallowed his pride and fought for the relationship instead of letting it slip away? What if he had been more vulnerable, more communicative, more present? He begins to picture alternate realities, ones where he did things differently. And those daydreams are both a comfort and a curse. Because while they offer a glimpse of what might have been, they also remind him that those possibilities are now out of reach. This is where Stoicism plays an ironic role in his journey. Stoicism teaches us to accept the consequences of our actions with grace and to focus on what we can control. But in this stage, he struggles to apply that wisdom. Instead of acceptance, he's stuck in a loop of what-ifs and if-onlys. What makes this stage so powerful is the emotional depth it forces him to confront. This isn't the kind of regret that fades after a few weeks or months. It's the kind that lingers, reshaping the way he views relationships and himself. It's the kind of regret that becomes a lesson, a painful, transformative lesson about what happens when you fail to value something or someone until it's gone. And the hardest part, regret doesn't come with a reset button. He can't go back in time and change the choices he made. All he's left with are memories, questions, and the haunting realization that he may have lost the best thing that ever happened to him. As this stage unfolds, he starts to see your absence not just as a loss, but as a void, a space that no one else seems able to fill. And with every passing day, the weight of that void grows heavier, leaving him to wonder if he'll ever find someone like you again. But regret isn't the end of his journey. It's the catalyst. It's the turning point that forces him to take a hard look at himself and the life he wants to build moving forward. Because losing a high-value woman isn't just a wake-up call, it's a moment of reckoning. 4. The lingering reminders. Even after the waves of regret settle, something peculiar begins to happen. He starts noticing the world around him in a way he never did before. The reminders of you aren't just occasional, they're everywhere. They follow him like a shadow, weaving into the fabric of his daily life. It might start with a song. Maybe it's one you used to sing along to in the car, your voice filling the air with laughter and off-key charm. One day it plays on the radio, and instead of tuning it out, he stops. He listens. And as the melody drifts into his ears, he's transported back to those moments with you, moments that now feel both so close and so impossibly far away. Then, there's the scent. Perhaps it's the perfume you used to wear or the subtle aroma of a coffee shop you both frequented. One random encounter with that scent, and he's struck by an almost overwhelming wave of memory. He sees you in his mind's eye, smiling, your hair catching the light just right, and for a fleeting moment, he swears he can feel you there beside him. But it's not just songs or scents. The reminders come in the form of places: the park bench where you once sat talking about your dreams, the restaurant where you celebrated milestones, or the quiet street corner where you shared an unexpected kiss. These aren't just physical locations anymore. They've become landmarks of your shared story, haunting and sacred all at once. Even conversations with others bring you back to him. Someone mentions a book you recommended, or they tell a joke that's eerily similar to your sense of humor, and suddenly he's thinking about the way you used to make him laugh until his stomach hurt, the way your intelligence and wit lit up every room you walked into. These reminders act like tiny cracks in the armor he's tried so hard to build around himself. Each one chips away at his resolve, leaving him vulnerable to the flood of emotions he's been trying to suppress. And the irony is he can't escape them. Even when he tries to distract himself with work, friends, or new experiences, some small, seemingly insignificant thing always brings him back to you. What's most striking about these reminders is how they force him to confront the depth of what you meant to him. Because at first, he might have thought that losing you was simply about losing a relationship. But as these moments accumulate, he begins to realize it was so much more than that. You weren't just someone he spent time with. You were his confidante, his muse, his grounding force. The person who saw him truly saw him in ways no one else ever has. And these reminders, they don't just highlight your absence, they emphasize your irreplaceability. This stage isn't about regret or longing in the conventional sense. It's about understanding the impact you had on his life. It's about realizing that the connection you shared wasn't just rare, it was transformative. And now, as these reminders surround him, he starts to see that what you brought into his world wasn't just love or companionship. It was growth, inspiration, and a sense of belonging that he struggles to find anywhere else. But here's the part that stings the most for him. These reminders don't go away. They become a part of his narrative, woven into his daily existence like a bittersweet undercurrent he can't ignore. And the more they appear, the more he understands that this isn't just about nostalgia or sentimentality. It's about loss, real, tangible, irreplaceable loss. It's about acknowledging that no matter how much time passes, there will always be parts of his life that are touched by you, parts of him that were shaped by your presence, your wisdom, your love. Even the mundane becomes profound. A simple walk through the city might trigger a cascade of memories, each one more vivid than the last. He finds himself pausing, lost in thought, wondering how something so simple could feel so significant now that you're gone. This is the paradox of the reminders. On one hand, they keep you close to him, ensuring that your presence is never truly forgotten. But on the other hand, they amplify the void you've left behind, making it painfully clear just how much you mattered. And while he may never admit it to anyone, perhaps not even to himself, these reminders are both a gift and a curse. A gift because they allow him to hold on to the beauty of what you shared, but a curse because they highlight the emptiness that now resides where you once stood. The stoicism he tries to embody in this phase teaches him the value of resilience, of accepting what cannot be undone. But even stoicism has its limits when the heart is involved, because no matter how much he tries to move forward, these reminders will always be there, quietly reminding him of the woman who changed everything. 5. The growing emptiness. As time goes on, the world around him might seem normal, even unchanged. But inside, there's a void, a growing emptiness that he can't ignore. It's not just loneliness, it's something deeper, something more profound. It's the realization that he's lost a connection that grounded him, challenged him, and most importantly, made him feel truly seen. This emptiness doesn't arrive suddenly. It builds slowly, like a fog creeping into every corner of his life. At first, he tries to fill it. Maybe he throws himself into work, staying late at the office to avoid quiet evenings where his thoughts run wild. Or perhaps he dives into distractions, new hobbies, new people, anything to keep his mind busy. But here's the truth. No matter how hard he tries, nothing feels the same. He'll meet new people, have new experiences, and for a brief moment he might even convince himself that he's moved on. But when the lights dim and the distractions fade, the emptiness remains, a quiet and persistent reminder of what he's lost. He misses the way you made him feel. Not just loved, but understood. Not just cared for, but inspired. You weren't just a partner, you were his safe space, the one person who truly saw him for who he was, and loved him anyway. And now, without you, there's a sense of incompleteness that no one else seems able to fill. What makes this stage so challenging is that he starts to realize how rare your connection truly was. He might have thought, "I'll find someone else." There are plenty of fish in the sea, but as time passes, it becomes painfully clear that your bond wasn't something that could simply be replaced. Even when he meets someone new, he can't shake the feeling that something's missing. Maybe it's the way you listened, really listened, when he talked about his dreams. Or the way you knew how to comfort him without saying a word. Or the way you challenged him to be better, not by criticizing him, but by believing in him so deeply that he wanted to rise to meet your expectations. The emptiness becomes a mirror, forcing him to confront the depth of what he's lost. It's no longer just about you. It's about the way your presence shaped his world, made him feel like a better version of himself. And now, without you, he's left questioning who he is, what he wants, and whether he'll ever feel that kind of connection again. This stage is where the lessons of Dark Stoic Psychology begin to take root. Stoicism teaches us to accept the things we cannot change, to find strength in adversity, and to grow through our pain. For him, this emptiness becomes a catalyst, a chance to reflect, to grow, and to understand the kind of person he wants to be moving forward. But growth doesn't come easily. The emptiness is a constant presence, a reminder that true connections are rare and must be nurtured. He begins to see that relationships like the one he had with you don't just happen, they require effort, vulnerability, and a willingness to show up fully. As he navigates this stage, he starts to understand something profound. It's not just about finding someone new. It's about becoming the kind of person who can truly appreciate and nurture a high-value connection when it comes into their life. But here's the question for you. Have you ever felt like your absence taught someone more about love and connection than your presence ever could? Have you ever seen someone grapple with the void you left behind and realized that you were their wake-up call? If this resonates with you, let me know by hitting the like button and commenting number 1 below. Your story is powerful, and your presence, whether in someone's life or in their memory, has the ability to transform. And if you want to uncover even more about how your worth as a high-value woman shapes those around you, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We're only halfway through this journey. What's coming next is where everything changes. The regret, the lessons, the growth. It all starts to take shape in ways you don't want to miss. Stay tuned. 6. The desire for reconnection. As the emptiness grows, a new feeling begins to take hold in his heart, a longing, almost desperate in its intensity, to reconnect with you. This stage isn't just about regret or nostalgia, It's about the overwhelming sense of unfinished business. Something in him tells him he needs to reach out, to explain, to apologize, to try and fix what was broken. At first, this desire feels impulsive. He might think, I just need to hear her voice again. Or, if I could just see her one more time, everything would make sense. But as the days go by, this longing becomes less about impulse and more about clarity. He realizes that you weren't just someone he dated, you were someone who fundamentally changed his life. And losing you left a gap he doesn't know how to fill. This longing for reconnection is different from the fleeting thoughts of regret he had earlier. Now it's all-consuming. He replays conversations in his mind, thinking of the words he should have said but didn't. He imagines scenarios where he could have acted differently, could have chosen patience over pride, love over ego. And as these thoughts swirl, they fuel a deep, undeniable urge to find you and try again. But reaching out isn't as simple as it sounds. His pride still lingers, whispering doubts into his ear. What if she's moved on? What if she doesn't want to hear from me? What if I'm too late? These questions paralyze him, creating a battle between his heart's desire and his fear of rejection. He might draft messages he never sends, his fingers hovering over the keyboard as he tries to find the perfect words. He might even come close to dialing your number, only to hang up before the first ring. Because while his longing for reconnection is powerful, so is the fear of facing the consequences of his actions or inaction. This is where the paradox lies. On one hand, he wants nothing more than to see you, to tell you how he feels, to show you that he's grown. But on the other hand, he knows that the very act of reaching out could reopen old wounds for both of you. There's also the humbling realization that by the time he's ready to reconnect, you may have already moved on. Perhaps you found someone who sees your worth from the start, someone who doesn't need to lose you to understand what you bring to their life. This thought is both devastating and motivating for him. But even as he grapples with the possibility of rejection, the desire to reconnect doesn't fade. If anything, it grows stronger with each passing day. Because at its core, this stage isn't just about wanting you back, it's about wanting closure, clarity, and the chance to rewrite the story that ended too soon. The emotional weight of this stage is immense. He's torn between hope and fear, between the possibility of rekindling something beautiful and the reality that some doors, once closed, remain shut forever. And yet, he can't shake the feeling that reconnecting with you could bring him the peace he's been searching for. The lessons of Stoicism begin to surface here, teaching him the importance of accepting what he cannot control while focusing on what he can. But this isn't an easy lesson to learn, because while Stoicism encourages resilience and emotional balance, the heart often has its own agenda. And in this case, his heart is screaming for one more chance. Ultimately, this stage isn't just about his desire to reconnect with you. It's about what that desire reveals about him. It shows him the depth of his feelings, the mistakes he made, and the kind of person he wants to become. Whether or not he acts on this longing is another story. But one thing is certain. The desire for reconnection is a powerful testament to the impact you had on his life. And while he may never get the chance to tell you how much you meant to him, this stage will stay with him, shaping the way he approaches relationships moving forward. Because losing you wasn't just a lesson, it was a transformation. 7. Self-reflection and growth. When the longing for reconnection begins to settle, something even more profound takes its place. Self-reflection. This stage is quieter, less chaotic, but infinitely more transformative. It's the point where he stops looking outward and starts looking inward. It's no longer about what you did or didn't do. It's about him. He begins to ask the hard questions. Why did he take you for granted? What fears or insecurities held him back from giving you the love and commitment you deserved? And most painfully, why did he let his pride or complacency drive a wedge between you two? These aren't easy questions to face. They force him to confront parts of himself that he's avoided for years. Maybe it's his fear of vulnerability, the walls he built to protect himself from getting hurt. Or maybe it's his tendency to prioritize fleeting distractions over meaningful connections. Whatever the answers, they're not flattering, and they're certainly not comfortable. But this discomfort is where the growth begins. As he reflects on his role in the relationship, he starts to see patterns, habits and behaviors that have held him back, not just with you, but in other areas of his life. Perhaps he realizes that his inability to communicate openly stems from unresolved wounds from his past. Or maybe he sees that his focus on external validation, the need to prove his worth through achievements or attention, has kept him from building deeper, more authentic connections. This stage is a reckoning. It's where he begins to understand that losing you wasn't just a random event or a stroke of bad luck. It was the result of choices he made, choices he now regrets deeply. And while he can't change the past, he starts to see that he can change the future. He might begin seeking out ways to grow, whether it's through therapy, self-help books, or simply taking the time to sit with his thoughts. He becomes more intentional about his actions, more aware of how his words and behaviors impact the people around him. And most importantly, he starts to take responsibility for his own happiness and growth. This is where the principles of Dark Stoic Psychology come into play. Stoicism teaches that true strength comes from within, from mastering one's emotions, accepting life's challenges, and striving to become a better version of oneself. As he reflects on the loss of you, he begins to embrace these lessons, realizing that the path to fulfillment isn't about avoiding pain, but about learning from it. The beauty of this stage is that it's not just about the pain of losing you, it's about the potential for transformation. He starts to see you not as a reminder of his failures, but as a catalyst for his growth. Losing you becomes the wake-up call he needed to confront his own flaws and limitations. But growth isn't linear. There are moments of progress where he feels hopeful and motivated to change. And then there are setbacks where the weight of regret threatens to pull him back into old patterns. The journey is messy, but it's real. And through it all, he keeps coming back to one simple truth. If he wants to build a better future, he has to start with himself. This stage also forces him to redefine what he wants in a relationship. It's no longer about surface-level attraction or convenience. It's about finding someone who challenges him, supports him, and inspires him the way you did. But more importantly, it's about becoming the kind of person who can nurture and sustain that kind of connection. As he moves through this stage, he begins to see you in a new light. You're no longer just the woman he lost. You're the woman who taught him what it means to love and be loved. And while he may never get the chance to show you how much he's grown, your impact on his life is undeniable. Self-reflection and growth are the ultimate gifts that come from loss. They're not easy, and they're certainly not painless, but they're transformative. And for him, this stage is where he starts to see that losing you wasn't the end of his story. It was the beginning of a new chapter. Because while regret may linger, it's what he chooses to do with that regret that defines who he becomes. And as he steps into this next phase of his life, he carries with him the lessons you taught him, the strength you inspired in him, and the understanding that true love is something worth fighting for. 8. Acceptance and moving forward. There comes a moment in every journey when the struggle subsides, and all that remains is clarity. For him, that moment is acceptance. This is the phase where he finally understands that some things can't be undone, no matter how much he wishes otherwise. It's not a peaceful acceptance, not at first. It's heavy, sobering, and filled with the quiet resignation of knowing that you're no longer a part of his life. He doesn't arrive here overnight. Acceptance is the result of countless sleepless nights, of reliving memories until they lose their sharpness, of sitting with his regrets until they become lessons. It's the culmination of every stage that came before: the shock, the regret, the longing, the self-reflection, all weaving together into a tapestry of hard-earned understanding. At this stage, he no longer blames you for leaving. He no longer fixates on the moments you shared or the mistakes he made. Instead, he starts to see the bigger picture. That losing you was a consequence of his own actions, a reflection of his own growth, or lack thereof, at the time. Acceptance doesn't mean forgetting you. Far from it. If anything, you remain a vivid presence in his mind, not as a wound but as a reminder of the kind of connection he wants to build moving forward, and the kind of man he needs to become to nurture that connection. He begins to see you as more than a chapter in his story. You're a lesson, a guidepost, a symbol of what it means to truly love and be loved by someone extraordinary. And while it hurts to acknowledge that you're no longer by his side, it's also humbling, because he knows now that what you gave him was priceless, a chance to grow, to learn, and to become better. In this stage, he starts to rebuild. He lets go of the hope that you'll come back, not because he doesn't care, but because he understands that holding on to that hope keeps him tethered to the past. He begins to invest in himself, in his dreams, in his future, and as he does, he carries the lessons you taught him with every step. He may never find someone exactly like you, and deep down, he knows that's okay, because your uniqueness isn't something that can be replicated. But what he can do is use what he's learned to create a better foundation for future relationships. This is where the philosophy of Dark Stoic Psychology becomes a guiding force. Stoicism teaches the importance of resilience, of finding strength in adversity, and of focusing on what can be controlled rather than dwelling on what cannot. In losing you, he's learned the true meaning of these principles. He starts to apply them, not just in relationships but in every aspect of his life. He becomes more intentional with his time, more present in his interactions, more aware of the kind of person he wants to be. And while this growth doesn't erase the pain of losing you, it transforms that pain into purpose. But here's the part that will always stay with him. Acceptance doesn't erase the impact you had on his life. Even as he moves forward, there will be moments, quiet, fleeting moments, where he thinks of you. A song might remind him of your laugh, or a passing conversation might echo something you once said. And in those moments, he'll feel a pang of longing, not to go back, but to honor what you shared. Acceptance is a strange thing. It's both an end and a beginning. For him, it marks the end of his time with you, but also the beginning of a new chapter, one shaped by the lessons you left behind. So, as he steps into this new phase, he carries you with him, not as a regret, but as a reminder of what's possible when two people truly connect. And while he may never get the chance to tell you how much you meant to him, your influence on his life is undeniable. Now, let me ask you, have you ever wondered if someone who lost you found their greatest growth because of your absence? How does it feel to know that your impact was so profound it shaped their journey forward? If this resonates with you, let me know by hitting the like button and commenting number 1 below. And if you're ready to uncover more about the power of being a high-value woman, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Together, we'll continue exploring the lessons, the insights, and the transformations that define truly meaningful connections. The journey isn't over yet. What's coming next will reveal even more about the lingering lessons of your impact and how they shape him in ways he never expected. Let's keep going. 9. The lesson in losing you. When he reaches the final stage, something profound happens. The pain, regret, and emptiness he's carried slowly transform into clarity. He begins to see that losing you wasn't just an event, it was a turning point. A lesson not just about relationships, but about himself, his values, and what it means to truly cherish someone. This lesson doesn't come easily. It's born out of the countless moments he spent reflecting on your time together, the memories that lingered long after you left. Each flash of a shared laugh, every moment of quiet comfort, And every challenge you face together becomes a part of the bigger picture he can finally piece together. He starts to realize that you weren't just a person in his life, you were a mirror, reflecting back the best and worst parts of him. You showed him what it meant to feel truly understood, yet you also exposed the ways he fell short. And while that reflection was hard to face, it's what allowed him to grow. In losing you, he learns about the importance of intentionality. He begins to understand that love isn't something you stumble into, it's something you build brick by brick with trust, respect, and effort. He recalls the moments where he let complacency creep in, where he assumed you'd always be there, and he realizes that relationships like the one you shared require nurturing, not neglect. He also learns about vulnerability, your ability to be open, to share your heart and your dreams was a gift he didn't fully appreciate at the time. But now he sees that true strength lies in being vulnerable, not just in receiving love, but in giving it fully, without fear or reservation. But perhaps the most powerful lesson is about presence. You taught him the value of being present, not just physically but emotionally. He remembers the times when you listened to him, truly listened, without judgment or distraction. He sees now how much those moments meant, and how often he failed to offer the same in return. This stage is where the teachings of Dark Stoic Psychology truly come alive for him. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of embracing life's challenges as opportunities for growth, and he begins to see that losing you was one of the greatest challenges he's ever faced. But through that challenge, he's found a new understanding of himself and the kind of partner he wants to be. He realizes that being a high-value man isn't just about success or charisma, it's about integrity, emotional intelligence, and the willingness to grow. Losing you taught him that these qualities aren't optional, they're essential for building a meaningful connection. And while this lesson is painful, it's also transformative. He begins to carry himself differently, with a quiet confidence that comes not from pride but from self-awareness. He starts to approach relationships with a new level of respect and intentionality, determined not to repeat the mistakes of his past. But here's the truth. Even as he grows, a part of him will always carry the memory of you, not as a burden, but as a reminder of what he lost and what he gained in the process. You become a touchstone, a guiding light that shapes the way he approaches love, life, and himself. In the quiet moments, when the world slows down and he has time to reflect, he'll think of you. Not with bitterness or regret, but with gratitude. Gratitude for the way you challenged him, inspired him, and showed him what was possible. Gratitude for the lessons you left behind, even in your absence. He knows now that losing you was a turning point. It was the moment that forced him to confront his flaws, embrace his growth, and become a better version of himself. And while he may never get the chance to show you how much he's changed, he carries the impact of your presence with him every day. This final stage isn't about closure, it's about evolution. It's about stepping into a new chapter with the wisdom he gained from losing you, and the determination to build something even stronger moving forward. Because at the end of the day, losing you wasn't just a loss, it was a lesson in love, resilience, and the power of becoming better. As this chapter of his life concludes, he steps forward with a deeper understanding of what he wants and who he needs to become. But even with this growth, there's a quiet truth he carries. No matter how much he evolves, the memory of you will never fade completely. You see, losing someone as remarkable as you isn't just an event. It's a defining moment, one that reshapes the way he sees himself and the relationships he'll pursue in the future. And though life moves on, there's always a part of him that will remember you not as a mere chapter, but as a cornerstone in his story. This realization becomes a lasting imprint on his heart. It's not about living in the past or dwelling on what could have been. It's about carrying the lessons forward, using them as a foundation to build something meaningful. Whether or not he ever crosses paths with you again, the impact you've had on his life is undeniable. He knows now that high-value relationships require high-value actions. They demand effort, vulnerability, and a commitment to growth. And as he steps into his next relationship, he'll carry the wisdom you left behind, hoping to create something just as beautiful as what you once shared. But here's the most powerful part. Your presence and absence taught him that love isn't just about finding the right person. It's about becoming the right person. And in that lesson, you've left a legacy that will shape his life in ways neither of you could have imagined. In the end, the story of losing you isn't just about him. It's about you too. It's a testament to your strength, your worth, and the kind of love you brought into his life. And while he may carry the weight of this loss forever, he also carries the lessons, the memories, and the growth you inspired. So, as his journey continues, he'll move forward with the understanding that some people are replaceable, that the connection you shared wasn't just a moment in time, but a profound lesson in what it means to love, grow, and evolve. And as for you, you move forward too, confident in your worth, grounded in your strength, and ready to embrace the future that lies ahead. Because losing you wasn't just his lesson, it was yours too. And there it is, the journey he takes when he realizes he's lost you, a high-value woman who shaped his life in ways he never expected. It's a story of shock, regret, longing, and ultimately growth. But here's the most empowering part at all. While he's learning these lessons, you're thriving. Your absence is his wake-up call, but your presence in your own life is the masterpiece you're creating. You've chosen to walk away, not out of spite, but out of love for yourself, a love that refuses to settle for anything less than what you truly deserve. And in doing so, you've set a standard, not just for him, but for everyone who comes into your life. So what does this mean for you? It means that your value doesn't diminish when someone fails to see it. If anything, it shines even brighter. It means that your journey is yours to own, to build, and to celebrate, regardless of who walks in or out of your life. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever been someone's greatest lesson? Have you ever seen the ripple effect of your absence transform someone in ways they never imagined? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, don't forget to like this video, comment number 1, and subscribe for more insights into relationships, self-growth, and the powerful lessons that come from embracing your worth. Thank you for spending this time with me. Keep stepping into your power, keep growing, and remember, the best is yet to come. Until next time, stay strong, stay grounded, and most importantly, stay you.